The blizzard hit so fast that Anna Ellsworth barely had time to think before the world turned into a wall of white death. And somewhere in that screaming wind, she knew her old life was finally being buried along with her tracks. She had been riding for 3 days straight, pushing her horse harder than she should have, fleeing from St. Louis with nothing but the clothes on her back and the terrible knowledge of what she had witnessed. The year was 1876, and winter had come early to the Kansas plains. Her fingers were numb on the reins, her face raw from the cold, and she could no longer feel her feet in the stirrups. The horse beneath her stumbled, and Anna knew they would not make it much farther. She had no idea where she was, only that she needed to keep moving, to put as much distance as possible between herself and the men who would kill her if they found her. The snow was falling so thick now that she could barely see past her horse's ears. The animal whinnied in distress, its breath coming in great clouds of steam. Anna leaned forward, trying to shield her face from the biting wind, when suddenly the horse's front legs buckled. They went down hard, Anna flying over the animal's head and landing in a snowdrift that knocked the wind from her lungs. She lay there gasping, the cold seeping through her coat and dress, and when she finally managed to push herself up, she saw that her horse was not getting back up. The poor creature had given everything it had. Tears froze on Anna's cheeks as she stumbled forward on foot. She had to keep moving. If she stopped, she would die out here. Her thoughts were becoming sluggish, her movements slow and clumsy. The world tilted around her, white and endless. She thought she saw lights in the distance, warm and golden, but she could not be sure if they were real or if her mind was playing tricks on her. She walked toward them anyway because there was nothing else to do. Her legs gave out just as she reached what appeared to be a fence. She grabbed at it with frozen fingers, trying to pull herself along, but her body would not obey. She sank into the snow, her vision darkening at the edges, and her last coherent thought was that at least the men from St. Louis would not find her body until spring. She woke to warmth and the crackling of a fire. For a long moment, Anna could not remember where she was or what had happened. Her body ached everywhere, a deep bone-cold pain that made her want to cry out. She opened her eyes slowly and found herself in a small room with rough wooden walls. She was lying in a bed piled high with quilts and blankets, and across the room, a fire burned in a stone hearth. A man sat in a chair near the fire, his head bent as he worked on something in his lap. He had dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and broad shoulders that filled out his worn flannel shirt. As if sensing she was awake, he looked up, and Anna found herself staring into the kindest eyes she had ever seen. They were a warm brown like honey held up to sunlight, and they regarded her with concern. "Easy now," he said, his voice deep and gentle. "You have been through quite an ordeal. Do not try to move too quickly." Anna tried to speak, but her throat was too dry. The man immediately set aside his work and brought her a cup of water. He helped her sit up enough to drink, supporting her with one strong arm while holding the cup to her lips with the other. The water was cool and sweet, and Anna drank greedily. "Slowly," he cautioned. "Not too much at once, or you will make yourself sick." When she had drunk enough, he eased her back down onto the pillows. Anna found her voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. "Where am I?" "My ranch, about 5 miles outside of Dodge City, Kansas," he said. "I found you collapsed by my fence during the blizzard last night. You are lucky I decided to check on my horses when I did, or you would have frozen to death out there. Your own horse did not make it, I am sorry to say." Fresh tears stung Anna's eyes at the thought of the faithful animal that had carried her so far. The man looked uncomfortable at her tears but reached out to awkwardly pat her hand. "I buried it this morning, soon as the storm broke," he said. "It was a good horse. Rode itself to death trying to keep you safe." "Thank you," Anna managed to say, "for helping me, for burying my horse." "Name is Kade Norton," he said. "And you are welcome, though I cannot say I did much more than any decent person would do. What is your name, if you do not mind my asking?" "And what were you doing out in that storm?" Anna hesitated. She did not want to lie to this man who had saved her life, but she also could not tell him the truth, at least not all of it. "Anna Ellsworth," she said finally. "I was traveling and got caught in the storm. I did not realize it would come on so fast." Kade Norton studied her for a long moment, and Anna had the uncomfortable feeling that he knew she was not telling him everything. But he did not press her. Instead, he simply nodded and stood up. "Well, Miss Ellsworth, you are welcome to stay here until you are recovered enough to travel. I live alone, so there is no one to object to the arrangement, though I suppose it is not entirely proper. Still, I would not turn you out into the cold, and the storm is supposed to last another few days at least." "I do not want to impose," Anna said, though in truth she had nowhere else to go. "It is no imposition," Kade said firmly. "You need rest and warmth and decent food. I can provide all of that. We will worry about what comes next when you are back on your feet." Over the next 3 days, as the blizzard continued to rage outside, Anna slowly began to regain her strength. Kade proved to be a surprisingly good caretaker. He brought her meals of hearty stew and fresh bread, changed the bandages on her frostbitten fingers and toes, and kept the fire burning steadily. He did not ask her prying questions, though Anna often caught him watching her with a thoughtful expression. The ranch house was small but well built, with 2 bedrooms, a main room that served as both kitchen and living area, and a small root cellar. Kade had given Anna his own bedroom while he slept on a pallet by the fire. The furniture was simple and handmade, but everything was clean and well maintained. There were books on a shelf by the window, which surprised Anna. Most cowboys she had known could barely read. On the 4th day, the storm finally broke, and weak winter sunlight streamed through the windows. Anna was able to get out of bed and dress herself, though her movements were still slow and painful. When she emerged from the bedroom, she found Kade cooking breakfast at the stove. "You should not be up yet," he said, frowning slightly when he saw her. "I have imposed on your hospitality long enough," Anna said. "I need to start thinking about moving on." "Moving on to where?" Kade asked, gesturing for her to sit at the table. "You have no horse, no supplies, and by the look of things, not much money either. Where exactly do you plan to go?" Anna sat down heavily, knowing he was right. "I will figure something out," she said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "Perhaps I can find work in Dodge City." Kade was silent for a moment as he dished up plates of eggs and bacon. He set one in front of her and then sat down across the table with his own. "What are you running from?" he asked quietly. Anna's head snapped up. "What makes you think I am running from anything?" "Because I found you half dead in a blizzard, riding a horse that had been pushed beyond its limits, with no supplies and no clear destination," Kade said. "Because you flinch every time you hear a sound outside. Because you have nightmares every night that make you cry out in your sleep." "I am not a fool, Anna. Something happened to you, something bad enough to send you fleeing into the wilderness in the middle of winter." Anna stared down at her plate, her appetite gone. For a long moment, she considered continuing to lie, but something in Kade's steady gaze made her want to tell the truth, or at least part of it. "I worked in a restaurant in St. Louis," she said slowly. "A nice place, respectable. I was a waitress there for 2 years. One night I stayed late to help with inventory. I was in the back room when I heard voices in the alley outside. I looked out the window and I saw 2 men killing a 3rd man. They stabbed him and left him to bleed out in the snow. Cade's expression had gone very serious. Did they see you? I do not know, Anna said, her voice shaking slightly at the memory. I think one of them might have looked up at the window. I ran, grabbed my coat and my small savings and left town that same night. I knew that if they had seen me, they would come looking for me. And I knew that men who would kill so casually would not hesitate to kill again to protect themselves. Did you recognize them? Cade asked. Anna nodded slowly. One of them was a police officer. I had seen him in the restaurant before. That is why I ran instead of going to the authorities. Who would believe me against a policeman? And if he had already killed once, what would stop him from killing me to keep me quiet? Cade was quiet for a long time, his jaw tight. Finally, he said, "You did the right thing running. Men like that, they have long reaches and few scruples. But Kansas is a long way from St. Louis. You should be safe here, at least for a while." I cannot stay here forever, Anna said. I need to find work, start building a life somewhere. Why not here? Cade asked suddenly. The question hung in the air between them, and Anna looked at him in surprise. What do you mean? Cade leaned back in his chair, considering his words carefully. I mean that I could use help around the ranch. It is hard running this place alone, and with spring coming, there will be even more work to do. I can offer you room and board and a small wage. Nothing fancy, but it would be honest work and a safe place to stay, at least until you figure out what you want to do next. Anna stared at him, not quite believing what she was hearing. You would do that for me, a stranger. You are not a stranger anymore, Cade said simply. And I do not like the thought of you going into Dodge City alone with no protection and no prospects. The town can be rough, especially for a woman on her own. Here, at least I can make sure you are safe. Anna felt tears prickling at her eyes again. She had not expected such kindness, especially not from a man she barely knew. I do not know what to say. Say yes, Cade said, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Say you will stay at least for a while. Give yourself time to heal, to rest. Let the snow bury your past and we will figure out your future together. The words struck something deep in Anna's chest. Let the snow bury your past. It sounded like a promise, like hope, like something she had not dared to dream about in the long, desperate days since she had fled St. Louis. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I will stay. The next few weeks fell into a comfortable routine. Anna's strength returned slowly, and as it did, she began helping Cade with the work around the ranch. She cooked meals, mended clothes, and helped him care for the horses and cattle. The work was hard, much harder than waiting tables had been, but Anna found she did not mind. There was something satisfying about ending each day exhausted from honest labor, about seeing the tangible results of her efforts. Cade was patient with her, teaching her what she needed to know without making her feel foolish for not already knowing it. He showed her how to mend tack, how to tell when a horse was coming down with colic, how to read the weather by the color of the sky. He was quiet by nature, but when he did speak, his words were thoughtful and kind. Anna found herself looking forward to their evenings by the fire, when they would sit and talk about small things, or sometimes sit in companionable silence while Cade whittled and Anna mended. She learned that he was 26 years old, 3 years older than herself. He had inherited the ranch from his father, who had died 2 years earlier from a fever. His mother had passed when he was young, and he had no siblings. He had been running the place alone ever since, doing his best to make it profitable in a harsh and unforgiving land. It gets lonely sometimes, he admitted one evening, his hands busy shaping a piece of wood into what would eventually be a horse figurine. I love this place, love the work, but there are times when I wish there was someone to share it with, someone to talk to at the end of a long day. Anna understood what he meant. She had been lonely too, even before she had fled St. Louis. Working in the restaurant had meant long hours and little time for friendship, and the other girls who worked there had always seemed to view her as competition rather than a potential friend. "I know what you mean," she said softly. "I have been lonely for a long time too." Kade looked up from his whittling, meeting her eyes across the firelight. "You are not lonely here, are you?" "No," Anna said, and realized with a start that it was true. Despite everything she had been through, despite the fear that still sometimes woke her in the night, she was not lonely here. "No, I am not lonely at all." Something shifted between them in that moment, something subtle but profound. Kade held her gaze for a long moment before returning to his work. But Anna could see the slight flush on his cheeks, the small smile he was trying to hide. As winter slowly gave way to early spring, Anna realized that her feelings for Kade were deepening into something more than gratitude or friendship. She found herself noticing small things about him. The way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the strength in his hands as he worked, the gentleness in his voice when he spoke to the animals. She noticed the way he always made sure she had the warmest seat by the fire, the way he brought her wildflowers when he came in from checking the fence line, the way he looked at her when he thought she was not paying attention. One evening in early March, as they sat by the fire after supper, Kade set aside his whittling and turned to face her directly. "Anna," he said, and there was something in his tone that made her heart beat faster. "I need to talk to you about something." "All right," Anna said, setting down her mending. Kade was quiet for a moment as if gathering his thoughts. "You have been here for almost 2 months now," he began. "And in that time this place has started to feel different, better, like a home instead of just a house I live in. You have brought life back to this ranch, Anna. You have brought life back to me." Anna's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to speak, but Kade held up a hand. "Let me finish," he said. "I know you came here running from something terrible. I know you did not plan to stay. But I have to tell you how I feel, even if it changes things between us. Anna, I have fallen in love with you. Somewhere between finding you in that snowstorm and watching you help birth that calf last week, I fell completely and utterly in love with you." The words hung in the air between them, and Anna felt her eyes filling with tears. But they were not tears of sadness. "I love you too," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I did not think I would ever feel this way about anyone. After everything that happened, after everything I saw, I thought I would always be too afraid to let anyone close. But you make me feel safe, Kade. You make me feel like maybe I can have a future after all." Kade crossed the space between them in 2 long strides, kneeling in front of her chair and taking her hands in his. "Then stay," he said urgently. "Not just as my employee, not just as someone I am helping. Stay as my wife. Marry me, Anna. Start fresh with me. Build a life here with me, and let the past stay buried in the snow where it belongs." Anna felt as if her heart might burst from the joy flooding through her. "Yes," she said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, I will marry you." Kade pulled her to her feet and into his arms, holding her as if she were something precious and fragile. Then he tipped her face up and kissed her, gentle and sweet and full of promise. Anna kissed him back, pouring all her hope and love and gratitude into it, and for the first time since that terrible night in St. Louis, she felt truly safe. They were married 2 weeks later in Dodge City, at the small church on the edge of town. The ceremony was simple, with only the preacher and his wife as witnesses, but Anna did not mind. She wore a dress that Kade had bought for her, simple blue calico that fit her perfectly, and carried a bouquet of early spring wildflowers. Kade wore his best suit, and when he looked at her, his eyes were full of such love and wonder that Anna felt her throat tighten with emotion. I, Kade Norton, take you, Anna Ellsworth, to be my lawfully wedded wife, he said, his voice steady and sure. I promise to love you, honor you, and protect you for all the days of my life. I, Anna Ellsworth, take you, Kade Norton, to be my lawfully wedded husband, Anna replied, her voice equally steady despite the tears streaming down her face. I promise to love you, honor you, and stand by your side for all the days of my life. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Kade kissed her with such tenderness that Anna felt as if her heart might overflow. They signed the marriage certificate, thanked the preacher and his wife, and rode back to the ranch in the wagon, sitting close together on the bench seat. That night, in the bedroom that was now truly theirs to share, Kade made love to Anna with a gentleness and patience that made her fall even more deeply in love with him. He was careful with her, attentive to her needs, and when she fell asleep in his arms afterward, Anna felt as if she had finally found the home she had been searching for all her life. The next few months were the happiest Anna had ever known. Spring brought new life to the ranch, and she and Kade worked side by side from dawn to dusk. They repaired fences, planted a garden, helped several cows through difficult births, and began planning improvements to the house. Kade had dreams of expanding the ranch, of buying more cattle and building a bigger barn, and Anna loved listening to him talk about the future with such enthusiasm. In May, a cattle buyer came through Dodge City, and Kade managed to sell a dozen head for a good price. With the money, he bought Anna a beautiful bay mare, gentle and well-trained, to replace the horse she had lost. He also bought lumber to add a second bedroom to the house, for the children he hoped they would have someday. I want at least 4, he told Anna one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. Maybe more if you are willing. I want this house to be full of laughter and noise and the sound of little feet running everywhere. Anna leaned her head on his shoulder, smiling. I want that too, she said. I want to fill this house with love and family. I want our children to grow up knowing they are safe and cherished. They will be, Kade promised, kissing the top of her head. I will make sure of it. You and our children will always be safe and loved. That is my promise to you. By late summer, Anna suspected she might be pregnant. She waited a few more weeks to be sure, and when she finally told Kade, his reaction was everything she could have hoped for. He picked her up and spun her around, laughing with pure joy, and then set her down carefully as if suddenly remembering she was carrying something precious. A baby, he kept saying, his hand resting gently on her still flat stomach. We are going to have a baby. Anna, I am going to be a father. And I am going to be a mother, Anna said, feeling a swell of emotion so strong it nearly took her breath away. A year ago, she had been running for her life, cold and alone and terrified. Now she was married to a man she loved beyond measure, living on a ranch that felt like home and expecting a child. It seemed almost too good to be true, but it was true, and as the months passed and her belly grew round with their child, Anna felt more content than she had ever thought possible. Kade was attentive and loving, constantly fussing over her and making sure she did not overwork herself. He finished the addition to the house, creating a nursery with a hand-carved cradle and a rocking chair he built himself. He painted the walls a soft yellow and hung curtains that Anna had sewn from fabric she bought in town. Winter came again, and with it, the memories of the terrible blizzard that had brought her to this place. But this winter was different. This winter, Anna was safe and warm and surrounded by love. She spent her days preparing for the baby, knitting tiny clothes and blankets, while Kade made sure the house was well stocked with firewood and supplies. On a cold January morning in 1878, Anna went into labor. Kade rode into Dodge City to fetch the doctor and the midwife, and by the time they arrived, Anna was well into the throes of childbirth. It was long and difficult, more painful than anything she had ever experienced, but Kade never left her side. He held her hand, wiped her brow, and murmured encouragement in her ear. Finally, as dawn broke over the Kansas plains, their son was born. He came into the world with a lusty cry, red-faced and healthy, and when the midwife placed him in Anna's arms, she fell in love all over again. "He is perfect," she whispered, tears streaming down her face as she counted his tiny fingers and toes. "Just like his mother," Kade said, his own voice thick with emotion. He reached out to gently touch the baby's downy head, his expression full of wonder. "What should we name him?" They had discussed names for months but had never quite settled on one. Now, looking at their son, Anna knew what felt right. "James," she said. "James William Norton." "James," Kade repeated, smiling. "I like that. Hello, James. Welcome to the world, son." The first few months of James's life were exhausting but joyful. Anna marveled at how much love she could feel for such a tiny person, and Kade proved to be a natural father. He would rock James for hours when he was fussy, sing to him in a surprisingly pleasant baritone, and change his diapers without complaint. Anna would often find him in the nursery late at night, just standing over the cradle and watching their son sleep with an expression of such profound love that it made her heart ache. As James grew, so did the ranch. Kade's hard work and careful management were paying off, and they were able to buy more land and more cattle. They hired a young man named Thomas to help with the heavy work, which freed up more of Kade's time to spend with his family. Anna loved watching Kade teach James as he grew, showing him the horses and the cattle, explaining how the ranch worked. When James was 2 years old, Anna discovered she was pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy was easier, and in the spring of 1880 they welcomed a daughter into the world. They named her Elizabeth Grace, and she had her mother's green eyes and her father's dark hair. "Now we have one of each," Kade said, cradling Elizabeth while James climbed into Anna's lap on the bed. "A son and a daughter. We are so blessed. Should we try for those 4 you wanted?" Anna teased gently. Kade laughed. "Only if you want to. I would be happy with just these 2, but if you want more, I would love more. Whatever you want, Anna. Whatever makes you happy." They did have more. 2 years later, another son arrived whom they named Samuel Thomas. And 2 years after that, another daughter, Caroline Ann. By 1884, their home was indeed filled with the laughter and noise and running feet that Kade had dreamed of, and Anna could not imagine her life any other way. The children grew up happy and healthy, knowing they were loved beyond measure. James was serious and thoughtful like his father, taking an early interest in the workings of the ranch. Elizabeth was spirited and bold, always exploring and asking questions. Samuel was gentle and artistic, preferring to draw pictures of the animals rather than help herd them. And Caroline was sweet and affectionate, always wanting to help her mother in the kitchen or garden. As the years passed, the ranch continued to prosper. Kade's reputation as an honest and fair cattleman grew, and buyers would seek him out specifically for his livestock. They were able to expand the house again, adding a proper dining room and a second floor with more bedrooms. Anna planted flower gardens around the house, and they built a wide front porch where they would sit in the evenings, watching their children play in the yard. One evening, as they sat on that porch watching the sunset, Kade reached over and took Anna's hand. "Do you ever think about what might have happened if that blizzard had not hit when it did?" he asked quietly. "If you had made it to Dodge City instead of collapsing at my fence?" Anna considered the question. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but I try not to dwell on it. That blizzard brought me to you, and I cannot regret that, no matter how terrible it was at the time." I think about it too, Kade said, and I am grateful for that storm even though it nearly killed you. Because it brought you into my life, and you have made me happier than I ever thought possible. You and our children, this life we have built together, it is more than I ever dreamed of. Anna squeezed his hand, tears in her eyes. You saved me, Kade. Not just from the storm, but from the fear and loneliness that would have destroyed me eventually. You gave me a home, a family, a future. You told me to start fresh with you, and I did, and it has been the best decision I ever made. We saved each other, Kade said, pulling her close. I was just existing before you came along, going through the motions. You brought joy and purpose back into my life. You made me remember what it was like to be truly alive. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching as the sky turned from gold to pink to purple. Inside the house, they could hear their children laughing, probably getting into some kind of mischief. Anna smiled at the sound. You ever worry that the men from St. Louis will find you? Kade asked suddenly. It was a question he had not asked in years, and Anna was surprised by it. Not anymore, she said honestly. It has been so long now, and we are so far away. I think whatever happened that night has been forgotten by everyone except me, and even I do not think about it much anymore. That life feels like it belonged to someone else, not me. Good, Kade said firmly. Because you are Anna Norton now, wife and mother and the heart of this family. The woman you were before, the things you saw, they are buried under years of snow and happiness. They cannot touch you here. Anna turned to look at her husband, this man who had given her everything she had ever wanted and so much more. His face had a few more lines now, and there was silver at his temples, but to her, he was just as handsome as the day she had first opened her eyes and seen him sitting by the fire. I love you, she said simply, more than I can ever put into words. I love you too, Kade replied, kissing her gently. Always have, always will. The door burst open, and their children came tumbling out onto the porch, James carrying Caroline on his shoulders while Elizabeth and Samuel chased them. They were laughing and shouting, full of energy despite the late hour, and Anna and Kade could not help but laugh with them. All right, you wild things, Anna said, standing up. It is time for bed. Say good night to your father. There was a chorus of groans and protests, but the children dutifully kissed Kade good night. He hugged each of them tightly, whispering something to each one that made them smile. Then Anna herded them all inside, beginning the nightly ritual of getting them washed and into their nightclothes and into bed. By the time all 4 children were finally settled, with stories read and prayers said and one last drink of water fetched, Anna was exhausted. She returned to the porch where Kade still sat, and he pulled her down into his lap. They are going to be the death of me, she said, but she was smiling. They are wonderful, Kade said, just like their mother. They sat together under the stars, content in each other's presence, until the cold night air drove them inside to their own bed. As Anna lay in Kade's arms, listening to his steady heartbeat, she thought about how far she had come from that desperate woman fleeing into a blizzard. She had been so afraid then, so certain that her life was over, but it had not been over. It had been a beginning. The snow had buried her past, and Kade had given her a future, and together they had built something beautiful. The years continued to pass, each one bringing its own joys and challenges. There were harsh winters and dry summers, years when the cattle prices were good and years when they barely broke even. There were illnesses and injuries, moments of fear and worry. But through it all, Anna and Kade stood together, their love for each other and their family the bedrock on which everything else was built. James grew into a capable young man, eventually taking over more and more of the ranch management from his father. At 20, he married a sweet girl from Dodge City named Mary, and they built a house on the eastern edge of the Norton property. A year later, they gave Anna and Kade their first grandchild, a girl named Rose. Elizabeth proved to be as independent as she was spirited. She learned to break horses and could rope a steer as well as any man. She had no interest in the traditional path of marriage and domesticity, and Anna and Kade supported her choice to remain single and continue working on the ranch alongside her brothers. Samuel discovered a talent for woodworking and began crafting beautiful furniture that he sold in Dodge City and eventually in larger cities. He married a widow with 2 young children and brought his ready-made family to live on the ranch, adding even more life and laughter to the Norton homestead. Caroline, the baby of the family, grew up to be a teacher. She taught at the schoolhouse in Dodge City and eventually married the town doctor, a kind man named Henry who treated Anna and Kade with great respect and affection. By 1900, Anna and Kade were in their late 40s and early 50s, grandparents many times over and pillars of the Dodge City community. Their ranch was one of the most successful in the region, and their children and grandchildren surrounded them with love and joy. One spring evening, as they sat on the porch that had seen so many sunsets and conversations over the years, Kade suddenly grew serious. "Anna," he said, taking her hand, "there is something I have been wanting to say to you." "What is it?" Anna asked, concerned by his tone. "I just want you to know how grateful I am," Kade said, "for every day we have had together, for every moment, good and bad. You have made my life complete in ways I never thought possible. Before you, I was just a lonely cowboy with a struggling ranch and no real purpose beyond survival. You gave me everything, Anna. A family, a home, a reason to get up every morning. You have been my partner, my love, my best friend for over 20 years now, and I still fall in love with you a little more every single day." Anna felt tears streaming down her face, but they were tears of joy. "Oh, Kade," she said, her voice breaking. "You have given me just as much. You saved my life in more ways than one. You gave me safety and love and a beautiful family. You taught me what it meant to be truly happy. I was so lost when I stumbled onto your property that night, so broken and afraid. And you put me back together, piece by piece, with your patience and kindness and love. We put each other back together," Kade said, pulling her close. "That is what love does. It heals the broken places and makes us whole again." They sat holding each other as the sun set, painting the Kansas sky in brilliant shades of orange and red and gold. Inside the house, they could hear their grandchildren playing, their high voices carrying through the open windows. James was there with his family, staying for dinner as he often did. Elizabeth was in the barn, checking on a mare that was due to foal any day. Samuel and his family would be arriving soon, and Caroline had promised to come out from town the next day. "Did you ever imagine your life would turn out this way?" Anna asked softly. "Never," Kade admitted. "I thought I would live and die alone on this ranch, with maybe a hired hand or 2 for company. I never dreamed I would have a wife I loved so much it sometimes hurt. I never dreamed I would have 4 beautiful children and a dozen grandchildren. I never dreamed I would be this happy, this blessed." "Neither did I," Anna said. "When I was running from St. Louis, I thought I would be running forever. I thought I would never feel safe again, never trust anyone again. But then the snow came and it buried all of that fear and pain. And then you came and you gave me permission to start over, to be someone new. You told me to start fresh with you, and I did, and it was the best decision I ever made." "It was the best decision I ever made too," Kade said. "Asking you to stay, asking you to marry me, building this life with you. Every single day, I thank God for that blizzard and for bringing you to me." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Anna and Kade remained on the porch, content in each other's presence. They had weathered many storms together, both literal and metaphorical, and their love had only grown stronger with each passing year. The frightened woman who had collapsed in the snow and the lonely cowboy who had found her were gone, replaced by two people who had built a beautiful life together through hard work, commitment, and unwavering love. The front door opened and James stuck his head out. "Ma, Pa, dinner is ready. Mary made your favorite pot roast." "We will be right there," Anna called back. But they sat for a few more moments, Cade's arm around Anna's shoulders, her head resting against his chest. The wind whispered through the grass, carrying the scent of spring flowers and the distant sound of cattle lowing. This land, this place, had become their whole world. It held their history, their present, and their future in the form of their children and grandchildren who would carry on after they were gone. "Ready?" Cade asked finally, standing and offering Anna his hand. "Always," Anna said, taking it and rising to her feet. "As long as I am with you, I am ready for anything." They walked into the house together, hand in hand, to join their family for dinner. The table was crowded and noisy, full of love and laughter and the kind of joy that comes from being surrounded by the people you love most in the world. Anna looked around at all the faces, young and old, and felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. This was her life now. This beautiful, messy, wonderful life. And it had all started with a blizzard and a cowboy who had told her to start fresh with him. She had taken that chance, had trusted him with her broken heart and frightened soul, and he had proven worthy of that trust every single day since. After dinner, as they were saying good night to everyone, little Rose climbed into Anna's lap and asked her to tell a story. "Tell me about when you and Grandpa first met," the 5-year-old requested, her eyes bright with curiosity. Anna glanced at Cade, who smiled and nodded. Over the years, they had carefully crafted a version of their meeting that was appropriate for children, one that left out the violence and fear that had preceded it. "Well," Anna began, "it was a long, long time ago during a terrible snowstorm. I was traveling and I got lost in the blizzard. I was very cold and very scared, and I did not know what to do. But then your grandfather found me. He saved me and brought me to his home and took care of me until I was well again. And while he was taking care of me, we fell in love. And we got married and had your daddy and your aunts and uncle, and now we have all of you wonderful grandchildren. So you see, that snowstorm was actually a blessing in disguise, because it brought me to the love of my life." Rose considered this, her little face serious. "So Grandpa is a hero," she declared. "Yes, he is," Anna agreed, looking at Cade with love in her eyes. "He is definitely a hero." "Now, enough story time," Mary said, scooping up Rose. "It is way past your bedtime, young lady. Say good night to your grandparents." After more hugs and kisses, James and his family finally headed home. Anna and Cade cleaned up the kitchen together, moving around each other with the ease of long practice. When everything was put away and the lamps were extinguished, they made their way to their bedroom. As Anna brushed out her hair, which was now more gray than blonde, Cade came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "Do you remember the first night you spent in this house?" he asked, meeting her eyes in the mirror. "Of course I do," Anna said. "I was so weak I could barely move, and you were this kind stranger who kept bringing me food and water and making sure I did not freeze to death. I fell in love with you that very first night," Cade confessed. "I looked at you lying in my bed, so fragile and brave at the same time, and I just knew somehow that you were going to change my life." "Did I change it for the better?" Anna asked, though she already knew the answer. "For the better does not even begin to cover it," Cade said, turning her around to face him. "You transformed my life completely. You took a lonely house and made it a home. You took a man who was just going through the motions and gave him a reason to really live. You are everything to me, Anna Norton. Everything. Anna reached up and cupped his face in her hands. And you are everything to me. You gave me a future when I thought I had none. You gave me safety and love and a family. You gave me a reason to stop running and start living. I love you, Kade. I will love you until my dying breath and beyond. They kissed, slow and sweet, a reaffirmation of the vows they had made to each other more than 20 years earlier. Then they climbed into bed, and Kade pulled Anna close, her back to his chest, his arm around her waist. It was how they had slept every night of their marriage, and Anna could not imagine falling asleep any other way. "Kade," she said softly into the darkness. "Yes, thank you, for finding me that night, for saving me, for loving me, for giving me this beautiful life." "Thank you for letting me," Kade replied, kissing the back of her neck. "Thank you for staying. Thank you for taking a chance on a lonely cowboy who had nothing to offer but his heart." "Your heart was all I needed," Anna whispered. They drifted off to sleep together, secure in the knowledge that they had found something rare and precious, something that many people searched for their whole lives and never found. They had found true love, the kind that weathers all storms and only grows stronger with time. They had found their home in each other. The years ahead would bring more changes, more challenges, more joys and sorrows. There would be more grandchildren and eventually great-grandchildren. There would be good years and bad years, times of plenty and times of struggle. But through it all, Anna and Kade would face everything together, their love the constant in an ever-changing world. On their 25th wedding anniversary, their children threw them a surprise party. The house was full of people, family and friends from all over the county, and there was music and dancing and enough food to feed an army. Kade and Anna stood in the center of it all, overwhelmed by the love surrounding them. "Speech, speech." Someone called out, and soon everyone was chanting for them to speak. Kade looked at Anna and she nodded, giving him permission to speak for both of them. He cleared his throat and raised his hands for quiet. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "Anna and I are deeply touched by this celebration, and by all of you being here to share it with us. 25 years ago, I married the most incredible woman I have ever known. She came into my life during a blizzard, half frozen and running from a past that had nearly destroyed her. But she was brave enough to let me help her, to trust me, and eventually to love me. Together, we have built this life, this family, this community. And I want everyone here to know that every single good thing in my life comes from her. Anna, you are my heart, my home, my everything. Here is to 25 more years together, and then 25 after that." There was not a dry eye in the house, and Anna herself was crying openly as she hugged Kade tightly. "I love you," she said, not caring who heard. "I love you so much." "I love you too," Kade replied, "forever and always." The party continued late into the night, and when everyone had finally gone home and the house was quiet again, Anna and Kade sat on their porch once more, watching the stars wheel overhead. 25 years, Anna said wonderingly. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday, and sometimes it feels like we have been together forever." "I know what you mean," Kade said. "Time is a strange thing, but I would not change a single moment of it, Anna, not one. Even the hard times, because they taught us what we were made of and made us stronger." "Me neither," Anna agreed. "Every moment, good and bad, has led us to right here, right now, and I would not trade this life for anything." As they sat there, Anna thought back to that terrified woman who had fled into the snow so many years ago. She thought about how lost and broken and alone she had felt, how certain she had been that her life was over. She had not known then that she was actually heading toward the beginning of the greatest adventure of her life. She had not known that the blizzard that nearly killed her would actually be her salvation. The snow had buried her past, covered up all the fear and pain and violence she had witnessed. And when she had emerged from that snow, she had emerged into the arms of a man who would love her unconditionally for the rest of their lives. Kade had given her a future, had offered her the chance to start fresh, and she had been brave enough to take it. And what a life they had built together. A ranch that prospered, children who had grown into fine adults, grandchildren who filled their days with joy. A love that had sustained them through everything life had thrown at them. A partnership built on trust and respect and genuine affection. "What are you thinking about?" Kade asked, noticing her contemplative expression. "About how lucky I am," Anna said simply. "About how that blizzard was the worst and best thing that ever happened to me. About how grateful I am that you found me that night, that you took me in, that you loved me. About how my whole life changed in the span of a single night." "My life changed that night too," Kade reminded her. "I was just a lonely man with a dying ranch and no prospects. You gave me hope and purpose. You gave me a reason to work hard and build something lasting. You gave me a family and a legacy. We saved each other, Anna. That is what makes this so special." The wind picked up slightly and Anna shivered. Kade immediately stood and pulled her to her feet. "Come on," he said. "Let us go inside where it is warm." They walked into their house, the house that had seen so much life and love over the years. The walls were covered with photographs of their children and grandchildren. The furniture Kade had built was worn smooth by years of use. The quilts Anna had sewn were draped over every chair and bed. Every corner of the house held memories, precious and irreplaceable. As they prepared for bed, Anna caught sight of herself in the mirror. She was 50 years old now, no longer the young woman who had arrived here so long ago. Her hair was gray, her face lined with the years. But when she looked at herself, she saw someone who was content, someone who had lived a full and happy life, someone who was deeply loved. And when Kade came up behind her and smiled at her reflection, she saw that same contentment mirrored in his face. They had aged together, grown old together, and there was a beauty in that, a sweetness that came from knowing you had found your person and built a life with them. "Still the most beautiful woman I have ever seen," Kade said, kissing her cheek. "You are biased," Anna said, but she was smiling. "Absolutely," Kade agreed. "And I will be biased until the day I die. You are stuck with me, Anna Norton. I hope you know that." "I am counting on it," Anna replied, turning to kiss him properly. They climbed into bed, and as Kade pulled her into his arms, Anna felt a profound sense of peace wash over her. This was where she belonged. This was home, not just the house or the ranch or even the town of Dodge City. Home was wherever Kade was. Home was this man who had saved her life, and then spent the next 25 years proving that she had made the right choice in staying with him. "Kade," she said sleepily. If you could go back and do it all over again, would you change anything?" Kade was quiet for a moment, considering. "No," he said finally. "Not a single thing. Every choice, every decision, every moment has led us to right here. And right here is exactly where I want to be. With you in our home, surrounded by the family we created together. This is perfection, Anna. This is everything I ever wanted and more than I ever dreamed I could have." "Me too," Anna whispered. "Me too." They fell asleep holding each other, two people who had found each other in the most unlikely of circumstances and had built something beautiful and lasting. Outside, the wind whispered through the Kansas grass, a constant presence in this wild and wonderful land they called home. The stars shone down on the ranch, on the house full of love and memories, on the couple who had weathered so many storms together and would weather many more in the years to come. The next morning dawned bright and clear. the kind of perfect spring day that made everything seem possible. Anna woke to find Kade already up, the smell of coffee and bacon wafting from the kitchen. She dressed and joined him, accepting a cup of coffee and a kiss before sitting down to breakfast. "What are the plans for today?" she asked. "James wants help mending the fence in the north pasture," Kade said. "And Elizabeth mentioned that the mare is definitely going to foal today, so she will need someone to check on her regularly. Samuel is coming by to measure for a new bookshelf for the living room. And I think Caroline said she might bring the grandchildren out this afternoon." "Sounds like a full day," Anna said, smiling. "Just the way I like it." They ate breakfast together, planning their day, comfortable in the routine they had established over so many years. When they were done, Anna cleaned up while Kade went out to begin his chores. She watched him through the window, still strong and capable despite his years, and felt that familiar surge of love and gratitude. Throughout the day, their children came and went. James showed up with his tools to work on the fence. Elizabeth called them to the barn to witness the birth of a healthy foal, a beautiful chestnut filly that stood on wobbly legs within minutes of being born. Samuel took his measurements and chatted with his parents about his latest commission, a dining table for a wealthy family in Wichita. And Caroline did indeed bring the grandchildren, who ran wild around the property, their laughter echoing across the prairie. As Anna stood in her kitchen preparing dinner, surrounded by the sounds of her family, she reflected on how full her life had become. The kitchen that had once been quiet and empty was now the heart of a bustling household. The table that had once seated just one or two now regularly held a dozen people or more. The house that had been just a structure was now a true home, filled with love and life. That evening, after everyone had gone and it was just the two of them again, Kade found Anna in the garden. She was watering her flowers, the setting sun casting long shadows across the yard. He came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Another good day," he said contentedly. "Another perfect day," Anna corrected, leaning back against him. "Every day with you is perfect, Kade Norton." "Even the hard ones?" he asked. "Especially the hard ones," Anna said, "because those are the days when I remember how strong we are together, how we can face anything as long as we have each other." They stood there as the sun set, two people who had found each other against all odds and had built a life that exceeded their wildest dreams. The snow had buried Anna's past, just as Kade had promised it would. And he had given her a future, a beautiful, loving, full future that she treasured more than anything. "Start fresh with me," he had said all those years ago, and she had. And in starting fresh, in letting go of the fear and pain that had driven her here, she had found not just a future but a home. Not just a husband but a partner, a best friend, a soulmate. "I love you," she whispered into the gathering dusk. "I love you too," Kade replied. "Always and forever until the end of time." And as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, they walked back to the house hand in hand, ready to face whatever tomorrow might bring. Together. Always together. Just as it had been from that first snowy night, and just as it would be for all the years to come. Their love story, born in a blizzard and forged in the wild beauty of the Kansas plains, was one for the ages. A testament to the power of second chances, the healing nature of love, and the truth that sometimes the worst moments of our lives can lead us to the very best. Anna and Kade had found each other when they both needed it most, and together they had created something beautiful and lasting. A family, a legacy, a love that would endure long after they were gone, living on in their children and grandchildren and all the generations to come.